All right. God bless everyone. Welcome to our podcast show. This is just amazing. And I have a very special guest that is with us today. And we're reaching out. We also have a podcast, Black Community Report. We're also talking about the issues. What is facing our communities? Oh my goodness, what are the things that are really getting us? What are we afraid of? Is it the high gas prices? Is the inflation? Is it Oh my goodness. Is it being able to find food? Is it the paying for food? Food has gone up 38%. Is it our education? Well, today we're going to hone in on the education and helping our parents stay in the fight. I got education expert Ted Lamb, yes, with me today. How you doing, Ted?
Well, I was fine until you put in education expert. So now I feel like I'm melting or something, kind of a thing.
Well, a lot of people want to know, and again, give a little bit of background about yourself, what you do, your expertise, and how you got into this thing called education, and really now where we are right now.
Mhm.
Why is it so important that parents, that organizations, whatever it is, understand churches, what's going on right now with education? Give them a little bit of background about yourself.
Well, okay. My name is Ted Lamb. I'm married. We have two children. They are now grown, if you will, and we have a third that I've kind of adopted as it is. But long story short, long short story of that. But I went to Oklahoma Christian University back in the Stone Age, and I got a degree in social studies education, bachelor's of social studies education, to be a history teacher. I have a master's in special education, and I have been now teaching total. Would be my 26th year. I have taught on 3 continents: Europe, the United States, of course, and Asia. In Asia, I was teaching English as a second language. In Europe, that was more of a teaching English as a second language using the Bible component as well. So I have now been in Virginia. This is going on my 19th year. I teach in an alternative school for students that don't like the word no, if you will. And I teach American and world history and American government. This year, they got me trying my hand a little bit on economics and personal finance. So, but history, I love history. I love teaching it. I love making it about as alive as you can in my classroom. And I strongly use primary sources. If I can get away from not using a textbook, I do. That's not to completely slam textbooks, but I just think that sometimes textbooks has tendencies to slant specific ways that they want to go. If you had told me back in 1996 that I would have, as a teacher, I would be a judge, a jury, a social worker, a parent, all of those things, I would have said, yeah, that's a plate load, but I still do it. But if you had told me at that time also that there'll come a time where I might have to take a bullet for my classroom, that I would have to lie to parents and students, that I would have to teach curriculum that is not accurate from a historical perspective.
Yeah.
I would have probably, as bad as I might say or feel ashamed about it, I might have given it a second thought a little bit.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I love teaching. I love teaching history. I love students. But as many teachers are finding out, and as the public is starting to find out, and you haven't even seen the beginning of this yet, and that is that we're walking out. We are walking out.
Yeah.
We've We've tried to warn the public for 20 years, but in doing that, we have been demeaned. Many teachers have had their jobs yanked out from under them just because they didn't agree with or go along with the talking points.
Wow.
And so what we're starting to do is just walk with our feet and not necessarily walk out of education completely, but we're starting our own schools or our own tutoring
What is
components.
what has been going on? Because you know, it seems like parents are getting very concerned about what's being taught their kids.
Hmm.
And how have you noticed that is the educational system backing the parents, or do the parents need some new advocacy now to let them know that we're behind you? What have you been seeing?
So, and that's an excellent question. So, what has happened here, and the best way to describe this so that everyone can understand this as best as you can, President Eisenhower, as he was walking out the door, he did what traditionally presidents do. He gave his farewell speech, and in there, he gave a warning. He told the American people to beware of the military industrial complex. Well, I would argue today that we have an educational industrial complex that is varied, it has tentacles, and it is large, and it is expansive.
Yeah.
And it only exists off of the thought and the premise that you don't understand it. And that has happened, and that has not happened off of President Obama or Donald Trump or so forth. This has been something that's been in the making for years. I also belong to a social media group called Conservative Teachers of America, and some of the things that we have seen that has been passed here in Virginia, and parents need to be aware of this too, has been going on for about 20 years in other states. So it's not anything new. It's just gotten here now. Make no mistake about it. I applaud Governor Youngkin, Lieutenant Sears, and Attorney General Mayeres with regards to some of the things that they have attempted to do. But as I have also told and mentioned this as well, don't be fooled, because just because you think that you put in a new policy, it changes nothing. And here's why. There's still a Virginia law in place that says that I have to do and say certain things. That was House Bill 1904 when it was passed by Delegate Clinton Jenkins. Was I think he was the actual sponsor, and they had several other sponsors. Make no mistake about that. Make no mistake that professional development, when they say, when we make the argument that CRT, and 6 months ago that was critical race theory. Well, now we've changed it to culturally responsive teaching. And when we say that there's no curriculum on that, well, you're right, there's no curriculum. But this is what's happening. Teachers are being professionally developed in these things. Virginia, under the formal administration, actually with House Bill 1904, actually has put together a professional development to where teachers have to go through it in order to keep your license. And I went through it just to see it. And when you go through it, it is all, it's gender identity, gender-based, it is critical race, the questions and all of it is right there.
So you're saying the name has been changed, but it's still inserting the same ideology or philosophy to the kids. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I'm saying that the name, even though the name has changed, or I would even go so far as to say that maybe the name is interchangeable as well. If because we want to put it in education terms, kind of an issue. But it's changed, and so what has happened is that teachers are being trained in this. So no, you can't go to the Virginia Department of Education and pull up the curriculum on culturally responsive teaching. But what it is, it's the philosophies, it's how we teach. It's actually now in our standard. Every teacher in Virginia has a teacher evaluation form that they have to be evaluated on every
Yeah.
year. Standard 6 is culturally responsive teaching, which means if your lesson plans do not reflect this, guess what? You're going to be evaluated poorly in that standard. Title IX. Everyone's talking about Title IX right now, because the federal government says that they, do you want us to change the wording to allow transgenderism as part of Title IX? I hate to break this to you, and I feel kind of like a little bit of an Edward Snowden, maybe a little bit off of this, but that's a falsehood. That got changed over 2 years ago in 2020. And the reason why I know that is because I've had professional development now on Title IX. And it has said for the last 2 years that transgenderism now is protected. So even though it may look like we're making progress, which I'm not saying we're not, but what I'm saying is that the general public, just like President Eisenhower said there, we need to understand the tentacles of the role of the federal, the state, and the local with regards to what they're doing to our children.
How can parents, because, whether it be the Black community, the white community, it doesn't matter.
Right.
How can the protection around our kids, as far as you understand, and I know that this is like a very muddy topic, like who's protecting the parental rights. But if these kids are being exposed day by day by day, and it looks like your camera zoomed into on you. If you could back up just a little bit, you got a great camera. I love your camera. But if the kids are being exposed day by day, and sometimes without parental consent, because that's a new thing I've been hearing now. They're doing things and bypassing parental consent. What is going on with that, and how can we stand, and how can I help to help fight with the parents to make sure that they're not being bypassed,
right,
with all types of decisions, saying that the child can make up their own decision?
Right. So there's a couple things that's in play here that also needs to be done and so forth. First off, this isn't something that's just happened under COVID or the last 6 months or the last 6 years. This has been a gradual process. Parents, I'm talking specifically to you right now. Think about it. Over the years with your children, if you called your school, right, and because of an issue, and you call down there and the principal never calls you back, or you kind of feel like you've been blown off with some kind of response, then you take it up to the school board. The school board says, give it to the superintendent. The superintendent turns around and says, you got to go back, you got to start at the school level. So public education has created a sort of a fiefdom, if you will, a medieval Dark Ages fiefdom with regards to we're in control of this and we're going to do what we're going to do. And if you disagree with us, we're going to call you names like you're anti-education, you're against our kids, you're, if you don't give us all the money that we're asking for, kind of an issue, kind of a thing. So how do we start to change this for the better? Well, let me premise this with saying too that I'm of the opinion that if it can be saved, and when I'm saying it, meaning public education, it's going to have to be like a house. You can't just repaint it. You can't just put siding on it. My concern with what I've seen, and I've served on a school board 2 terms total and still in the classroom, and based on what I'm seeing, you're going to have to gut the whole thing, rip out everything and start anew. Can we even do that? Part of how we can do that is that the general public has to start educating themselves on what I'm talking about with these tentacles. I love, I'm also the state coordinator for parental rights and education. I work with Moms for Liberty as well. I love seeing angry mothers. I mean, they're my biggest allies. Sometimes I grab popcorn and watch the show, kind of a thing. But what I've been saying though too is, I'm glad to see that you've got that passion, but you've got to, if you think you're just going to get elected onto a local school board and that you're going to be able to change things at the local level, you're not. You've got to understand the federal and the state components that's all tied into this. And it's so intricately tied that until we understand that and we are good at that, the details and so forth, we're not going to do what we need to do. Teachers, if there's any teachers listening, if you are of like-minded as myself, the time has passed. You cannot be fearful anymore. You cannot worry about losing your job. Yes, I know that's a possibility. I know that's a reality, even for me, and I need my job. But this is not about politics anymore. This is not about policy anymore. This is a moral and cultural battle that is going on. And
who wants our kids this comes down to who, well, let me say it like this: who is responsible for our kids, but who really wants our kids, and what do they want to do with them? And if that makes sense, who wants our kids, but who's really responsible for our kids?
I'll tell you exactly who's responsible for our kids. It is the parents. You are responsible for your children. I am just a partner in this thing called education. You are given the God-given directive, straight out of Deuteronomy even, of that you are the child's first parent. I'm there just to help, to be a partner in this as well. Yes, I went to school for a degree, but make no mistake about it, you are the ultimate responsibility of this. This also has been going on since the 1830s. We don't like to talk about it, but this shift over to state-run education, which ultimately then it's the state that wants our children, and to think certain ways and whatnot, is who's wanting it. It's just become more cynical with it. In case in point, the other ones that's also in charge here, parents, you remember that you were actually called domestic terrorists? Remember that? Just recently, you were called domestic terrorists by the National School Board Association that running to the Attorney General. Remember that? Well, guess what? Here in Virginia, I found out that the VEA, Virginia Education Association, and the NEA, National Education Association, are actually combining together. They're holding a conference in Richmond on October 7th and 8th called the EPIC Conference. It sounds all wonderful and all. And, since I know that they do wonderful work and they're morally correct on every issue, and I say that tongue in cheek, I was so excited to see that they were going to be in town. So I wanted to go see what kind of wonderful professional development they were going to have. And I go over to the agenda, and guess what? We here in Virginia voted against this. And I just found out this morning by talking to a Moms for Liberty chapter in New York that just said that she read 70% of us do not agree with this gender identity and so forth. But guess what's happening here in Virginia, October 7th and 8th, by the VEA and the NEA? They're hosting this EPIC conference, and some of the items or breakout sessions on there, one of them has to do exactly with gender, how to make your classroom safe spaces for transgender, this, that, and everything else. They don't care. They're not afraid. They're just thumbing it right in our noses. And so we have to be educated, and we have to start fighting back, just like they've been fighting for 145 years.
Yeah, I'm running for Congress in Virginia's 4th Congressional District, and it amazes me how my opponent does not want to debate me. This is one of the main things that I want to debate is what about our kids? Who's protecting our children and who's standing with the parents? It's got to be more than just education choice. It got to be school choice, charter schools, home schools. There got to be some other I call it the money follows the child. My opponent doesn't even want to debate me on this issue where all these parents are trying to figure out, am I sending my little Johnny, my little Susie to school to be indoctrinated by stuff that I don't even teach at home? And it's like, who wants our kids? I'm going back to this. Who really wants our kids, Ted? Is there somebody out there that is like honing in to take our kids from the parents? Who wants our kids?
The state. We even have a law here in Virginia, and other states do too. Probably every single state has a version of it's called parentis locus, meaning that when the child is in school, it is the school district that takes over as quote unquote parental rights, if you will, kind of like stands in place of the parent. Unfortunately, what has happened over the years is I think school divisions, the institution of public education, has taken that to actually start believing that they are the parents. And I mean, Kate, stop and think about it. Over the years, and again, parents, I'm talking with you, you know, we've done away with holiday parties. Think about it. You know, you can't bring cupcakes in because we have an obesity problem. You know, you can't pick up your kid after school except between the hours of, say, 2:25 and 3 o'clock. I mean, really? You're the parent. You're being told what to do. You know, child makes a gun out of a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. We've got an expulsion. Really? Yeah. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's the state that is wanting to do this, and dare I say, and I don't want to sound too militant or vigilant and scare you off, Pastor Benjamin, because I don't mean to be this way, but with my as a history teacher and everything else, until we start to figure out that we do have elements out here that wants to see the downfall of a republic, you know, a government, a republic, representative republic, or a republic, and wants to replace it with socialism, because all of this that we're talking about here is socialist platforms in the schools. There are those that wants to see it fall. I think the other side, meaning our side, we're still trying to play this as like politics. It's like you're showing up to a chess game and you're playing checkers. Wow. Because you think the other side is still playing checkers. They have been playing chess for 145 years. And I know there's a lot of things I'm saying that you know, is other you know, interviews and so forth to get into deep details on it. But
there are people that are watching right now, and I know that they have questions and comments.
Ask them.
I am telling you, if you got a question and comment for Ted, put it out there,
please,
because I think that we're in a new place right now. We're in a place where people have to decide, you know, what's most important for their children. And if parents can't decide what's most important for their children, then who is?
And to add to that, let me just say this too. With regards to, I just told you I've got over 20 plus years in the classroom. I'm still there. I was a school board member for 2 terms as well. And even I am now to the point of that, you know, we homeschooled our 2 children because I saw the handwriting on the wall. But also too, I'm looking at and being one of those teachers where we're going to be opening a private school in Virginia Beach, you know, soon too, because let's just for a second, let's say if we lived in a world that didn't have all of this toxicity, the fact that we have an SOL-based system in place that does A, B, C, D with no critical thinking, you know, no development of the mind, we're losing out. You've got, as a parent, it's fair for you to ask the question of, are my children being educated? In fact, you could turn around and say, was I properly educated, on things?
Wow.
I mean, you stop and think about it. Tim Anderson, Delegate Anderson, he brought up the fact about cursive writing. He's right. We don't teach cursive writing anymore. You touch on it, maybe to spell your name. Okay. You want to know why the writing level skills of graduates of high school now is sitting around 8th grade, 6th grade. Well, guess what? The SOLs may call for you to learn how to write a mini paper like we all did, anyone over the age of 40, the little index cards and we don't do that anymore. So you wonder why we can't write. You wonder why. Wow. You wonder why math scores are in the tank. No one teaches multiplication tables anyone for memory.
Wow. Look, Ted, we could go on and on. We got 2 minutes. I want you to give the next 2 minutes a summary and let them know how they can get in touch with you. Because this is going to be, we're going to continue this on. I'm going to have you on in another week or so to talk about some strategies for education. But if you could just give us how they can get in contact with you and just give us a summary, just give us 1 minute.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm sorry about that. If something that comes up to my phone. So you were asking how I can be in contact very easily. I'm on Facebook. I'm probably on there a little too much. But you can look me up, Ted Lamb, my personal page there. I'm also on, I've got a history page, History Moments with Ted, primary sources. Parents been using that for their history combination of things as well. You can also call me, area code 757-372-6343. I can email tjlamb1@protonmail.com. So I mean, messenger, wherever. I have no problems with taking questions, helping out in any way that I can, be it helping with parents that's got special needs students with their IEPs, or just in any capacity that I can help. I try to help. And then your second part there too was about how do we start fighting back, I guess, on some of this, or
just
wow.
Just
well,
a summary. We got about 30 seconds.
Wow, that's a lot, and I just wasted 5. I would say, for one, have people go back to our founding documents, Constitution, Declaration of Independence, read them thoroughly, relearn what they are, and then we need to start organizing of actually becoming educated on the tentacles, and then we start going from there.
All right, gang. You guys heard it from Ted Lamb, educational expert. That's what I call him. Look, we're going to come back and we're going to have Ted come back, but I want you all to start praying now for our parents, for our educational system, for our communities. And again, this is our wonderful podcast show, Black Community Report. And we appreciate Ed being a part of our community and just allowing us to just hear his heart about what needs to be done in our educational system. So I'm Leon Benjamin. Look, God bless you all. And we'll be right back in another podcast to share some more information. Black Community Report. God bless you all.
Thank you for having me.